Here I'm reading a paper by Norman Smith, written around 1905 or something, about the critical philosophy of Avenarius. Now, Avenarius, his ideas were very close to the ideas of Ernst Mach, though it took them a while to understand one another because they both approached things, you might say, from a different end, each in their own lingo, but it became clear they were trying to say the same thing in different ways. And I would say that this is an anti-dualist philosophy. Instead of mind and matter, as a first approximation, we might say neutral monism. So I'll read this part, which is crucial. Avenarius's teaching is that though the attitude of pure experience is perfectly consistent with itself, there inevitably arises at a very early stage of mental development that falsification of experience to which may be given the name introjection. This introjection consists in a false interpretation of the experience of others, which by a backstroke necessitates a similar and equally false interpretation of our own experience. When we look at another person, we observe that the objects which he perceives lie outside him, and arguing that the perceptions of them are in him and not outside him, we feel compelled to conclude that he does not apprehend the real external objects, but only subjective images or counterparts. As this interpretation is applied by me to the experience of all the other persons and is applied by all other persons to me, I feel compelled to apply it to my own world, and accordingly conclude that I do not perceive the outer objects, but only their inner copies. There must be two external worlds, the actual world in space and the apparently real but merely subjective world of each separate observer. Such an argument is, as Avenarius contends, obviously false. It rests on the assumption that the objects which I immediately experience as outside the body of another person are the real objects, which that other person apprehends only indirectly through mental copies. That is to say, on a realistic interpretation of my own experience, I base an idealistic interpretation of the experience of others. This contradiction becomes explicit when I am compelled to extend the conclusion thus reached to my own experience. For in so doing, I destroy the premise upon which the whole argument rests. So this is like the tacit direct realism that indirect realism needs to get started. So it basically saws off the branch that it sits on while it does the sawing. This is one of the most concise demolitions of a confusion that is still so dominant in philosophical talk.